The movie begins by showing a girl named Katherine G. Johnson working on a blackboard problem. She was so bright in mathematics that she was awarded a scholarship to attend the University of West Virginia. Now, Katherine has become a career woman and works in a prestigious place. Not only that, she already has 3 children. However, her husband has died, and now she is a single parent. In the morning, Katherine, Mary Jackson, and Dorothy Vaughan went to work together by car. Unfortunately, in the middle of their trip, the car broke down, and Dorothy had to fix it. Not long after, a police car arrived. They were scared because the 3 of them were black people. The slightest they did wrong could be in trouble with the law. The police then asked for their identities. When the policeman discovered that the 3 worked at NASA, he was shocked. After that, the policeman offered to escort them so they wouldn't be late for the office. Arriving at the office, NASA employees were busy observing the launch of Russian satellites and astronauts who successfully orbited the Earth. It made the USA feel challenged and asked NASA to compete with what Russia had achieved. Hearing the news, a man named Harrison, the leader of the space mission, checked into the IBM room, but the equipment there wasn't ready. After that, he asked his secretary, Ruth, to find an analytical geometry expert to calculate the trajectory and coordinates the USA astronauts would pass. Meanwhile, Dorothy is assigning a task delegation to her colleagues in the West Building, which is a black computing place. At that time, Mary got an assignment in the capsule testing section. Shortly after that, a white female supervisor named Mitchell arrived. She asked one of the staff, an analytical geometrician there, to transfer to the space team. Dorothy also sent Katherine, who would move there. On the other hand, Mary, a Western computing member, was in the testing room. There, she just wanted to see the capsules, which she said were still not perfect. Soon afterward, a man named Lansky, head of the engineering division, asked her what needed to be fixed on the capsule. She then explained it in detail. Hearing Mary's answer, Lansky felt admiration for her. He asked her to try applying for a technician or engineer. But she knew herself because she was part of black, so that sounded impossible. He motivates her not to feel inferior to her condition. On the other hand, Katherine had arrived at the space team's room. Everyone was surprised because this was the first time a black person had entered the section. She was given a lot of data by a male supervisor named Paul. When she opened the data, it was only part of it, and part had been crossed out. Paul said to count alone. Soon, Katherine wanted to pee, but unfortunately, there were no black toilets in the building, so she had to run to the West Building, which was 800 meters away. After that, when Katherine returned to her room, Harrison suddenly gave her another task and asked her to do it first. Feeling tired, she drank, but it attracted the attention of the white employees. However, she tried to be indifferent. After her job was done, Katherine gave the data to Harrison. Unfortunately, he put the work in the trash instead because the numbers changed quickly and the results were useless. Because of that, she went home disappointed. Arriving home, Katherine met her children, who had been waiting for her in their room. In the morning, Katherine, Mary, and Dorothy attended church with their respective husbands. On that occasion, Mary asked her husband's permission to change the division to become an engineer at NASA. However, her husband refused because he worried she would be disappointed when she remembered that she was a woman with black skin. During a break, Dorothy asked Katherine to get acquainted with Colonel Jim Johnson. Shortly afterward, Johnson approached Katherine to ask her to meet him while walking around the church. When he discovered that she worked at NASA's computing department, he accidentally uttered some words that offended her. Hearing that, Mary was angry and left him. The next day, NASA employees welcomed the arrival of Colonel John Glenn, one of NASA's astronauts. When Glenn was about to greet the line of black employees, his bodyguard said there was no need to do that. But he still shook their hands until the black employees felt appreciated. After they returned to their respective rooms, Katherine wanted to have a drink. However, she was surprised to find the employees' glasses that had been separated by skin color. She tried to be patient with it, then she continued to calculate the number of tasks that had been kept secret. She also tried to look at it under the lamp in case there was a clue. Luckily, she saw a number hidden there, so she could calculate it and get an accurate result. On the other hand, Dorothy handed her an assignment to Mitchell by passing through the IBM room. She asked Mitchell about supervisor vacancies but said that there were no supervisory vacancies for blacks. On the other hand, after completing her task, Katherine recalculated the results of her work on the blackboard. Her count immediately amazed the employees and Harrison because the results were accurate. However, after that, Katherine was interrogated instead. She was even accused of being a Russian spy because she could make accurate calculations from the meager data. She denies the accusations and explains that she knows the undisclosed number by looking at it under a lamp. Finally, Harrison asked Paul to reveal all the data to her. At lunchtime, Mary, Katherine, and Dorothy were eating together. Shortly after, Mitchell approached Mary to inform her that her application as an engineer was rejected because she was not taking additional classes at the University of Virginia. Mary replied that she couldn't take the extra class because Virginia was a white university. The next day, Dorothy took her children to the library to find books about IBM and how to operate it. However, the book was only on the white leather bookshelf. When she was in the white area, she was reprimanded by the female librarian, and she was even kicked out by the security guards. On the way home by bus, Dorothy took the book out of her bag. It turned out that she had managed to steal the IBM book secretly. In the evening, Dorothy, Mary, and Katherine have a party at her house. At that time, they also invite Johnson. On that occasion, he apologized to Katherine for his statement at that time. She forgave him, and the two of them danced together. Not long after, there was shocking news on television. It turned out that Russia managed to send its astronauts again and even can circle the planet for 108 minutes. The news also made NASA even more depressed, so Harrison took a policy so that NASA employees could work even harder to compete with the Russians. On the other hand, Mary, who felt discriminated against in her career and education, tried to sue the court. The judge finally granted Mary's request to attend additional classes at the University of Virginia with sincerity and conviction. Meanwhile, Dorothy, who is interested in the world of IBM, is still trying to learn IBM and operate it. Thanks to Dorothy's hard work, IBM could finally operate even though the device was still having trouble. Elsewhere, Katherine was busy counting numbers and had to go back and forth to the toilet quite far. Therefore, when Harrison looked for her, she wasn't there. When she returned, Harrison asked her about her departure. Katherine then expressed her frustration over the various discriminations she had received, including the toilet problem. Katherine's statement made Harrison destroy black and white toilet signs. He said, "From now on, there will be no difference in toilets based on skin color because, at NASA, their urine is the same." In the morning, the sick Katherine was visited by Johnson at her house. They then had breakfast with her children at the dining table. They grew closer and had time to vacation together at the weekend. After a while, NASA finally launched a rocket to the moon with the name Freedom 7 manned by Alan Shepard. The success of NASA was appreciated by the President of the USA, Kennedy, thus making NASA even more enthusiastic about carrying out its next mission. On the other hand, Katherine was working on a proposal by writing Paul's and her own names. Afterward, she told him that she wanted to be involved in planning the next mission, but he would not allow it. She then complained about it to Harrison. Sometimes later, NASA employees were busy trying to get Gus Grissom back from space. However, the repatriation encountered obstacles, and the capsule landed outside the predetermined coordinates. Besides that, the capsule sank into the sea due to a very strong impact. Luckily, Gus Grissom was saved. As a result of the incident, Harrison had to be in court. He confidently defended if all of that had a risk. He also assured that the next mission would be safer. In the office, Paul is leading a briefing to create a trajectory for John Glenn to follow. At the briefing, Katherine asked many questions to analyze what trajectory would be appropriate. Besides that, due to the rapid changes in the data, she requested that she be able to follow the briefing at the Pentagon. However, it was rejected by Paul. Hearing that, Katherine did not remain silent either. She tried to ask Harrison if she could attend the meeting to get the numbers analysis and calculation right. Harrison finally agreed to her request. When the Pentagon meeting began, the attendees seemed surprised by Katherine being black, but it wasn't a big deal for them. During the meeting, she accurately calculated and explained the Earth's orbit and landing point. This amazed the participants, including John Glenn, who admired her intelligence. In the NASA office, Harrison continued his checks into the IBM room. The technician there asked if IBM was up and running, and Harrison asked who had done it. The technician replied that Dorothy had done it. Harrison then told him to find her to be transferred to IBM. After that, Mitchell was assigned to deliver a delegation letter to Dorothy to handle IBM, but Dorothy turned it down unless her entire team moved to IBM. After negotiating, her team was finally allowed to move to IBM. At the University of Virginia, it seems that Mary is currently allowed to enter additional classes, of course, after she has obtained permission from her husband. At that place, she became the center of attention because she was the only black person in the class. In the NASA office, Katherine is trying to calculate a trajectory for John Glenn, but it looks like an error has occurred. Quickly, she found out where the error was. She also used the old method of mathematics and accurate results. After that, she reworked the proposal, but this time she no longer included her name in the second proposal. While Dorothy was in the toilet, she met Mitchell. She says she actually doesn't hate black people and apologizes for all the mistakes she made. When Katherine got home, she was surprised by Johnson's arrival, who proposed to her. She felt very happy about it. After some time, the plane manned by John Glenn was ready. This was accompanied by IBM's readiness to calculate geometry electronically. After that, Harrison apologized to Katherine if the Space Task Division no longer required manual computing. Because of that, she had to go back to the West Building. As Katherine was packing, Mitchell came over to give her a memento of pearl necklaces from her fellow space crews. Sometime later, the launch of the Friendship rocket manned by John Glenn came. However, NASA encountered problems because IBM's calculations were not valid. Harrison immediately contacted John Glenn to ask him to wait a moment. John Glenn said that Katherine's recalculation should be checked because he would not fly until he got an accurate count from her. Shortly after, Harrison sent his staff to look for Katherine's whereabouts and asked her to do an accurate count. After completing the calculations, Katherine handed the results to him. However, she was disappointed that she couldn't enter the monitor room. After that, Harrison called her to come into the room as she was about to leave. And after everything was ready, they asked John Glenn to prepare himself too. Not long after, John Glenn managed to take off into Earth's orbit. He plans to circle the Earth's orbit 7 times. However, on the 3rd round, the alarm rings because the temperature exceeds the threshold. Harrison then instructed rescue measures, but the plane caught fire and their communication was cut off. Everyone panicked about it, but soon communication was able to be re-established. So, to avoid unwanted things, he decided to repatriate John Glenn at the coordinates determined by Katherine. Harrison then thanked her for her dedication and service at NASA. Long story short, Mary finally graduated and became NASA's first black female engineer. Dorothy also managed to become the first black IBM supervisor at NASA. Meanwhile, Katherine is still working at NASA as a computing manual until the Apollo 11 mission. The moral that can be learned from this movie is to keep fighting for your rights as a citizen, especially if the struggle is carried out to serve the country.